I ask myself how much of my future I have left with this climate crisis. I ask myself, why doesn't anybody seem to act as this is a crisis and respond in a manner that would make any sense? Like now, how we act with coronavirus or World War II or something in that manner. But no, but it seems nobody is listening. The clock is ticking, and we're on one big ticking time bomb. We see the impacts of climate crisis all around us. There are climate refugees from the Bangladesh and the Sahel, fleeing sea level rise and drought. Hurricanes have increased intensity by 21%, contributing to hurricanes Katrina, Sandy, Harvey, and Maria. Huge wildfires in Alaska and California. Communities in Louisiana that have had to relocate because of climate change. Ice caps are melting. Climate change has helped bring Syria to war through a long drought. 50% of the world's coral has died in the last 30 years. Heat waves have gotten more frequent and deadlier. Climate change is causing and will cause more intense and longer sea level rise, declining glaciers and ice sheets, loss of almost all coral reefs, reductions in ecosystems, decline in air quality, disease, famine, allergies, heat waves, heat-related illnesses, catastrophic hurricanes, intense precipitation events, worse ticks and pestilence, invasive species and wildfires, degrading infrastructure, decline in mental health, rise in economic inequality, rise in war and conflict, rise in crime, creation of refugees, rise in economic depressions, rise in terrorism, and there are much worse impacts for the future, including 1.5 million people dying per year from climate change by 2100, including 4,000 people dying from just heat-related illnesses each year by 2100 in the Midwest alone. A loss of 1 million species, and entire countries disappearing beneath the waves, and a semi-permanent economic crash bigger than the Great Depression. But no industrialized country is meeting their Paris targets or pledges, and all are above 3 degrees of 3 degrees or above 3 degrees of warming. Oil and gas emissions have not peaked. To stay below 1.5 degrees, they must peak within the next 3 to 5 years. We are still heading for more than 4 degrees of warming by the end of the century, which point humanity would not be able to feed itself, and there'll be areas of the planet that will become uninhabitable, including and also up to 6 feet of sea level rise, if not more. We are still heading for more than 6 degrees after the century, which point humanity won't even exist anymore. Climate change still doesn't get the very much media coverage compared to less pressing issues. Still, billions of dollars are given to an industry that is creating our own civilization's demise. Politicians, you're deciding when and how people die. You are currently murdering people in developing countries. And you are planning the genocide of our entire generation. Why don't you kill us all now? It must be much simpler. Because that's what you're doing. You're murdering us. You're planning the genocide of an entire generation. It's obvious you don't care about us. Instead, you care more about money, about making excuses. You say we give you hope, but you don't have the power to stop. We don't have the power to stop 1.5 degrees. We don't have the time to wait for that power. You already have it, but you don't care. You don't care about the IPCC's findings that we need to reduce emissions by 50% by 2030 and to net zero by 2050 for a 50% chance of staying under 1.5 degrees. Dangerous climate change, and that's assuming that we are able to pump millions of tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere with technologies that barely even exist, and not accounting completely for positive feedback loops, which make this worse than models are projecting, and not accounting for the aspect of equity. You don't care. You don't care that the IPCC says that we only have left a carbon budget of 6 to 9 years, and that means that fossil fuels must peak immediately. But of course, you don't care. You don't care. You only care about more money. You care about more money, and that's it. You don't care about your children. For 30 years, you've known the science, but done nothing, and that's why we're mad. We're mad at your inaction, not climate change itself. We're mad For 30 years ago, you should have started massively investing in doing research in wind, solar, and other renewables, aiming to reach 100% clean energy, developing grid batteries, building a DC national grid, and incentivizing and expanding electric cars and chargers, phasing out fossil fuel vehicles, ending deforestation, implementing carbon capture and sequestration on industry, started research in sustainable aviation, recycling, grid batteries, decarbonizing industry, shipping, and carbon capture and sequestration, empowering Native Americans, helping small family-owned farms instead of big agribusinesses, implementing regenerative farming, feed additives, precision agriculture, anaerobic digesters, putting a price on carbon, implementing high-speed rail, expanding public transportation, weatherizing housing, electrifying rail, electrifying heating and cooking, creating millions of new jobs, including manufacturing jobs, helping industry mitigate climate change, ending the fossil fuel industry, ending fossil fuel subsidies, providing a just transition, building seawalls, dikes, river gates, and raising infrastructure to adapt to sea level rise, creating a resilient and efficient building codes, helping wildlife and agriculture adapt to climate change, improving and expanding our hospitals, emergency services that can cope with the impacts of climate change, expanding international aid, and phasing out coal. You should have started all that 30 years ago, but no, you pretended to do so by sending a platoon to do the job of an entire army. We need an entire economic transformation where how everything gets its power is changed, how every car has to be changed to electric, every house has to be weatherized. We need to change how we grow food, but thanks to your inaction, entire cities will have to be moved. Instead, you doubled down on fossil fuel subsidies, industrial ag subsidies, and deforestation, instead of standing up for the poor, middle class, African American, Native American, Hispanic, elderly, disabled, children, and people in the Rust Belt, Coal Belt regions. You stood up for the one who was already on a pedestal and had no reason to stand. Don't you care about your children and grandchildren? Don't you care about your constituents? Don't you care about your friends and family? Don't you care about America? Have you no conscience? It's not all about you and your election. We all want these with the things I mentioned: 100% clean energy, ending fossil fuel subsidies, high-speed rail, justice for Native American, regenerative farming, building seawalls, and more funding for weatherization and a just transition, just to name a few. We want a future that's bright and vibrant, with thriving economies, animal species that are not going extinct, healthy people, and places that will not be underwater. A future that is not less than what our parents said they would give us, but didn't. We need to take a stand for that future because it's under threat. We have less than 30 years to completely transform our economy to get off the fossil fuels, or we hit 1.5 degrees. And really, we should be reducing our emissions by 80% by 2030 to net zero by 2045 because of all the positive feedback loops and maybe we won't be able to do those technological inventions and all this other and economists and energy scientists say this is doable. Winston Churchill said, "America will always do what's right, but only after existing every option." But so far, we have done nothing but inaction. But we're finally coming to a tipping point with the intersecting crises of this economic crisis, coronavirus, and climate change. This is killing people today. Right now, people are dying. And the only way to prevent future deaths is to act now. This isn't about you. This is about humanity. This is about your friends, family, strangers on the street, your constituents, your children, your grandchildren, people in developing countries, people in vulnerable populations. Have some humanity. This isn't about you. This is about us. America's under threat. Our entire species is under threat. And we just stand around and do nothing. I'm so sick of it. And actually, there is no words to describe how angry this makes me. I want to know where the corruption ends and the good moral people with a conscience begins. Politicians, the actions you do are bigger than the elections. Be brave. Soldiers die on our freedom for our freedom, but you won't brave losing an election for our freedoms. Leaders with no courage shouldn't be leaders at all, and won't be there after next election. Paraphrasing Greta, you say you'll risk everything for your children, but that is a lie because you won't risk anything to protect them from deadly climate change, even many who believe in it. If you are mad at me for saying that, prove me wrong. I'm tired of being ignored, tired of being trampled on, tired of you not caring about us. We're not taking it anymore. With this economic depression on hand and the climate change intersecting this, we have a huge, massive opportunity to change things and rebuild our rebuild and carbonize our economy and provide billions of jobs. We are going to rise up, and if you don't stand up and stop climate change, we're going to protest and elect your fat ass out of office. No more excuses, no more lies and broken promises, no more bickering, no more debating whether or not to act, no more cowardice, no more saying no because of petty dislikes, no more waiting for someone else to act. We will care about other people. We will have a conscience. We will hold promises to our children. We will act on the climate change. We will act now, and we will win this fight. Thank you.